Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Take a Peek episode. This week, we are taking a peek at Duskers, the second game from the indie studio of Misfits Attic. As always, let's go ahead and open up the options first, see what the game has in store. Now, the actual options, graphical and audio, are fairly straightforward here. They also offer some nice difficulty options. Very simple overall graphical options. This game was developed in Unity, and they did not go too far in offering a whole bunch of different audio and graphical options. Just the basics. Difficulty options do seem a little confusing if you've never actually played the game before. I mean, come on. Radiation, vents, like you enable and disable all these different features. You determine how much scrap there is. This right here is the default difficulty settings. And I recommend just keeping it at it like that for quite a while, because that will work out well for you. So, what is Duskers, really? What is it? This is the beginning of the game. This is what you see at the very beginning. Critical fuel, you have six... Well, you have 6 distance, really. It says 6 days, but you have 6 distance of fuel remaining. And you need to figure out how to survive in this world, for lack of a better word, in this world. Duskers has you piloting drones into derelict spaceships, like you see here, the Zindayang Zhao. I'm sure I slaughtered that. Or even going to auto traders, which we'll do later on in the episode. Check that out. And the point of going to these derelict spaceships is you want to find the means to survive and piece together how the universe became a giant graveyard. Every single one of those little points we can go to right there is a derelict ship or a derelict base or an unused trading depot. Why is this world, this universe, a complete and utter graveyard? It's inspired by the Alien franchise and is a roguelite with elements of dungeon crawling, real-time strategy, and a survival horror setting that focuses on deception and adapting to survive. Now, we're going to go and jump into a little bit of gameplay here. And this game is entirely keyboard-based, so you will never see the mouse throughout the entire game. You'll never see me use the mouse. It's a keyboard game. So I'm running around here. I am personally controlling a single drone right now. I open up the airlock by typing in S1, pressing enter, and then gather to gather some scrap. The commands are very basic and straightforward, and there's a wonderful manual that we'll look at later that also has a great deal of information. But the tutorial is actually phenomenal in this game. So coming into it, this game kind of seems kind of complicated in a way that is just not an easy to understand game, especially looking at it and watching it for the first time. But the tutorial is fantastic in this game, and I highly recommend going through the tutorial, mostly because you're really not allowed to not go through the tutorial. It's a great tutorial, really sets you up for success. So we just activated the generator on our Wally drone, number 2, in the top right of the screen. And that powers up the entire facility. Now we can see the entire facility, each room given R and then a number. And you can see here we're actually moving stuff around between drones. The gear is not set. They can transfer back and forth as they see fit. And then we will be now trying to navigate this ship without dying. Now, the very first room you go to in the early game, the very first room you go to and the room adjacent to it that has the door open are safe. Knowing that, we can now try to make it through this entire ship, collect scrap, collect fuel, and get out back to our ship, trying to survive and figure out what happened. So what I just did there is just placed a lure in the room R3 and left the number 1 drone, Aaron, in that room. Turn on the stealth, and oh, there's an enemy. There it goes. All right, goes after the lure. We get out of that room, close the door behind us. Now the enemy is trapped in that room, and now we can go through the next. Stealth is, as you would expect, you can get by most enemies unscathed. There's some scrap on the floor, some fuel on the floor, and, oh, another enemy. Let's just go ahead and hide back in this room, turn off our stealth, and let it regenerate. It's a little time-consuming, but ultimately, stealth, going through the game with stealth is one of the most stressful and most difficult experiences that this game currently has to offer. The easiest, I would say, is using the motion sensor. Sometimes you start with the motion sensor, as you'll see in my Let's Play of the game. And the motion sensor is exceedingly useful. Stealth is very difficult to use. But just like that, we now know that we locked an enemy in room 3. We locked an enemy in room 4. And now we are safe to explore the remainder of the ship. There was nothing of interest in room 4, nothing of interest in room 3. So we're just going to run our little guy over to the 6th room. We're going to pick up the scrap. We're going to grab the fuel, and we're going to get out. There's a couple extra things to look at here. So right now the drone is on the fuel. The other icon in that room is an automated defense, so you can actually kill the infections. And then in room 5 is an interface that can turn on that defense, as well as do a whole slew of other things. It is a very useful thing. The interface, I would say, is among the most important and the most useful of all the things you can start with. But we did not get that here. We had lure and we had stealth. The game always gives you just enough to get through no matter what situation. There's always a way to get through and to move around the enemies with deception without losing any drones. The game always gives you enough. So, again, we're going to go into another ship, and this ship is a great example of what happens with the story. So sometimes you find this yellow text. This yellow text gives you a little bit of backstory about what is going on, and perhaps helps you find out more of why this universe is a giant graveyard. The old dialogues are corrupted. They are often not very useful, but sometimes they're a little suspicious. They make you think, did a human cause this? Or was it some sort of external natural event, supernatural event? Again, we'll get into the objectives a little bit later after we show a little bit more gameplay. So, scouting out the first room manually, scouting out the second room manually. Again, I specify manually because you can actually get another attachment called Scan that lets you just go into the room, just barely go into the room, and scan, and you'll know everything that's in that room, including some stuff that's hidden that you can't see by manually running around like we are here. So it is absolutely imperative that you pick up some of these more important items later in the game. Either you find them in a ship, and you can take them back with you. You find them in a drone that you can take back with you, or just rob the drone's carcass if it's too destroyed to take with you. Or you can find them in stores, all of which are completely viable options. So, again, we're going to do the same thing we did last time. Drop a lure. Last time the lure got attacked pretty hard, and then we'll stealth in order to figure out where the enemy is and whether or not we can move an enemy into that room. So patience is a virtue in this game. It is among the most important traits you can possibly have, is to just be patient. As you can see, I'm just kind of wandering through, not seeing a whole lot, and looks like this room's clear. Fantastic. This room is clear. We'll go ahead and turn off our stealth. We'll open up the door, go clear out that room. That was completely clear over there. We'll pick up all that scrap, all that beautiful scrap over there. There is another little thing that is in that room, but not really. There's nothing in the slot. But it's a storage slot that you can pick up ship upgrades in. So put a little info in there. We can see that it's a ship upgrade. It says cannon, but it's permanent, so we can't take it with us. Otherwise, we could use tow to take it with us in the future. Uh, so, having finally explored out what we see here, we can go ahead and safely put ourselves back in room 3 and then continue exploring the ship manually using our stealth drone. Now, if our stealth drone does go down here, there's not a whole lot we can reasonably do going forward. All we can really do is suffer. So, we'll go ahead and wait. Maybe something will come out. Maybe something won't. And going down is always hard, but oh, there's something. There it is. It's going for the lure. It kind of cares, kind of doesn't. But now we can leave that enemy... Uh-oh. Don't go to sleep, computer. What are you doing? We can leave that enemy stuck behind in that room. But sometimes you got to be a little careful. Sometimes you got to be a little more cautious because, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. Luckily, the enemies stop in the middle of the room. And you can always make sure they stop in the middle of the room. You'll be okay. But my stealth ran out just as I closed the door. It was a horribly close call. But now we know there's an enemy in R4. We know there's an enemy right below R4. And we can just go and explore the rest of the ship. Sometimes there will be more than 2 enemies. Often, in bigger ships, there will be more enemies. Makes sense. You know, it's a game that really kind of scales really well over time. To be truly honest, to be brutally honest, the game scales really well over time, but that does not hide the fact that this is a rogue-lite game. It is difficult. You are expected to die, and you are expected to fail. It's a game that you really just have to be careful. So right here, you can also just queue up the different actions. So we're navigating, gathering, navigating, gathering. Meanwhile, the infection is destroying the door, trying to get through for who knows why. So as we go ahead and finish out here, pick up the last bit of scrap, they'd managed to destroy the door and attack the lure. So we're just getting the heck out of here. There's one last thing we could have done here, is we could have left the power on and opened the airlock, A3. If we opened that airlock, we could have vented both of the infections out into space, presumably killing them. Don't know for certain this early in the game, but you're presumably killing them as you get them out into space. But those rooms become completely useless to you. They completely run out of, or not run out of, they get too full of radiation. And so that's ultimately not a good way to proceed forward. Now, in the auto trader, you never know what you're going to find. It's never consistent. But there is one thing that is absolutely consistent, which makes the auto trader always worth visiting. That is, whatever you buy from the shop, with the exception of consumables like fuel, where we just bought propulsion fuel to move around a system a little bit more. Whatever you buy, so like the extra lure and the extra tow that are sitting in the shop, if we bought those, we could then destroy them on our ship or resell them back to the auto trader for the same price. You don't lose any of your scrap when you buy or sell or scrap items unless that item is destroyed, which does happen from time to time. So in the drone menu, you can move items around between drones. You can move drones around in the order so you know what number to push to access which drone. And you can decide what drones are going to be on the ship with you and what drones will be in reserves. As you saw in the shop, we went ahead and bought remote power, and we can go ahead and put that directly into our ship, which will allow us to power a part of a derelict ship remotely. And then we're going into manufacturing, where we can repair parts of the ship. We can repair different components of the ship, like remote power, which would cost some scrap, or we can build the bare minimum to scavenge through a ship. The absolute bare minimum. However, it does not mean that you'll make it through with that unscathed. It's a rough time. The game is composed of several systems inside of several galaxies inside of a grand universe. Each ship has a different age, an infection type, and a different class. The age determines how likely it is to break while you are docked to the ship. The infection types determine what you'll be going up against, and the class determines what kind of information you could possibly get to figure out just what is going on, what is the greater story of this game. And again, of course, there's a trading post, and the Stargate will lead you to another galaxy. So, again, you can look around these. Oh, one last thing. The scrap capacity. Almost forgot that. That tells you how much potential loot you can get from the ship, although it's not a true number, but the higher the number, the better. So this is your objectives, and this is also your story. So this is all of the different text that has been acquired on this run, or not this run, this playthrough, up to this point. So I went ahead and cleared and went through and grabbed a whole bunch of stuff all over again to try and figure out all of what's going on. And ultimately, the story is very interesting. I'll give you that. It's very interesting. It's convoluted, and there's all sorts of different things in the yellow text there that you can read for what's going on. And then the blue text is how you proceed knowing this information. So if it's a pandemic, go to a biohazard site that we saw earlier, quarantine, and let one of them onto your ship. It's a rough time, to be sure. But it goes through a whole bunch of different challenges like that. Visit different types of ships, and ultimately you can uncover what in the world happened to this universe. One last little bit here is the manual. The manual tells you a whole lot of information, but not everything you need to know. A lot of what you need to know comes from experience. But if you are not the deceitful type, if you don't like just skulking around a ship and trying to avoid all combat, there is a turret. You can absolutely attach a turret onto your drones. I would say it's not the wisest move, but it is absolutely something that you can do if you wish to see combat. There's a whole lot of different tips and strategies that are offered by the game to help you get started. Such as with the motion sensor, sometimes the information comes back as inconclusive, but not for every room. So you have to figure out which rooms you can open up and get your infections to move into that room so you know where they are. But it's not always the easiest, such as the motion sensor right there. You can do alias to create quick commands, such as pressing end or typing end to just tell all your guys to go back to the ship. You can also, again, the tells. Each infection type has a tell you need to be careful and watch out for because they do matter. Sometimes, as it says there at the end, it's not safe to be in a room with a vent. And I know that's a little cryptic, but it's cryptic on purpose so I don't spoil too much. It's unfortunately a very dangerous game. And like I said, it's a strategy game that is in a survival horror settings. And you guys know me, I don't like horror games. I genuinely dislike horror games. But this game doesn't have to be a horror game. You can play it from the schematic mode and just type into the console and watch your drones just go about. It doesn't have to be a horror game. So overall, I would give this game a 7.5 out of 10. It's coming out of early access to be released on May 18th. And I would say ultimately it's a lot of fun. And if it looks fun from the gameplay you've seen here, I highly recommend picking it up. The last little bit there, for saving the game, it automatically saves whenever you exit the game or when you leave the main menu. And if you die in a run, it's okay because your progress is ultimately saved across the entire playthrough, all the playthroughs of all the game. Your progress is saved just like a standard roguelite game. So it's $20 on launch week when it comes out. It will be 10% off. So again, if it looks fun from what you've seen here, or if it looks like a challenge, or if you like roguelites or roguelikes, I recommend picking it up. It's been a lot of fun to play and very stressful, and there are moments that I think I will remember for longer than I want to. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, second game from the Indie Studio Misfits Attic, and I think they did a fantastic job. And I'm not just saying that because, as it says, sponsored by Misfits Addicts. I genuinely think they did a great job. So, um, that's it for this Take a Peek episode, guys. Remember, if you like it, give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share with your friends so they know about Duskers too. Thank you to Amphid for being a Patreon subscriber, and as always, again, thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time with another Take a Peek episode. DFTBA.